Right, so a small adjustment to the table. I had to put in some power there. Right, so let's start making this really interesting. What I will be doing though, besides the crimson, is I'm going to add a more interesting color into the mix. And that's going to be this cadmium red hue, which is a very bright color. Very bright. You can see there, it's a very bright red. And I'm actually going to be using that to create the horizon line, and you'll see that when you work with acrylic on paper, that as you layer the color, so the surface seals, and then you're able to actually do more with the color. But in the beginning it's quite tacky and it absorbs everything very quickly. Then we're going to go back to our lemon yellow, and we're just going to create that nice orange that you see there. Right, so there we have this nice orange, and then we take our ultramarine, and using that ultramarine now, and I'm not cleaning my brush all the time, we then mix that into those colors, and that's going to push back the color quite a bit, and you'll see that you get this dark kind of brownish color. And then I'll show you what we're going to do with that in a second. So here I am creating that kind of backdrop of color there, and then we go back to the yellow and just lightly then start to, and you'll see we're getting this kind of darkish green effect here, and that's also just helping to create the idea of the depth as we go down this river. And you'll remember that we said we wanted the light to be coming from the right hand side, so in this case some nice light coming through. Right, so there we have some of that, and then we're just going to mix in some of the dark, because the dark will be there. And yeah, so there we are creating that kind of backdrop of bushes, and we don't know what the bushes are, but we know that they're there. And then as you get closer, you'll see that the shapes become more defined. So these bushes here are pretty undefined, and I'm just going with some undefined lines, and we're just creating this foreground. And then here as well, we're going to have some bushes and stuff here on the water's edge, and I'm just blocking that off with the ultramarine. It's quite a versatile color, and you can push back with it, you can use it in the foreground, you can mix it up to create a lot of really nice colors. And yeah, so I'm just blocking off an area here. I'm actually not too worried about the color at all yet. I just want to create a slightly darker layer at the bottom, and then we'll start building on that. So as you can see, then we have some trees in the background, a bit of a mountain, and now what we're going to do is work our way slowly forward. And right at the back we use that red, and now we're actually going to come forward, and we're going to be bringing in some of the orange, and that we're going to do here kind of in the mid ground. So we're changing our tack a bit compared to what we had right at the back there, and we're going to go with the orange here closer to the front. So we're just blocking in, And once again, we're not too concerned about anything that we're doing, and the picture is kind of unfolding as we go. We don't have a reference or anything that we have to conform to. So, right, with that in mind, then what I'm going to do is go back to the lemon yellow. Now, lemon yellow is a color that is good for pushing back, and yeah, the sun's coming from the right hand side, we said, so we're just yeah, doing some sunlight there. And then here again we have some sunlight coming through, and because I'm not painting anything specific, your eye will start to make up its own shapes in the shapes that are so abstract. So I'm just basically getting some coverage going here, building up some layers, and you can see once again that I'm not actually painting anything. I'm just making a couple of smudges with a paint and in different directions, and over here, because it's coming from the right, I'm doing slightly shorter strokes. So there you can see the idea. Right, then I'm going to bring back some crimson here for two reasons. One is to put some here in the foreground. Crimson's also the color we used on the back mountains. And then the other reason why I'm doing that is I also just want to finish off that spot there. So, and also by using the two reds, we're able to create this slightly different band of color as well. So there you go. And then we'll just hit it with a bit of lemon yellow. So you can see now, once again, we're not going for any specific shape. We're just doing some abstract lines. And just by using the different color now, you'll see that we've created the illusion of depth. So here we have stuff quite close to us in the front, and then as you go further back, you get the illusion of that depth. So and once again, we're not actually painting anything at the moment. I'm not painting a tree, I'm not painting undergrowth. I'm really just creating some kind of a mood with the color, but I'm not trying to do anything specific, and I'm also not following any kind of specific brush stroke. So there you go. And then I think what I am going to do is something along those lines, a bit of a shadow there, and then here as well we have this, maybe a little bit of shadow to, you know, create some kind of an interesting landscape there. Okay, then what we might want to do in the river is add some rocks. So the first thing when we want to add some rocks is we need to add some orange. So let's add some orange. So let's add, we'll put a rock in there and something in there, and so it'll go down the river, and maybe there, and maybe something here in the foreground. And you're probably wondering why I'm going with the orange, and that's a really easy question to answer, because when we take the ultramarine and I mix that into the orange, you'll see that we get this lovely brown rock here, and we get another brown rock here, and another lovely rock there and there. Right, so there we have some rocks in the river, and let's add a bit of highlight there to the side. So I'm just using some yellow ochre here, and we're just doing that to the side of the rock. Right, so there we have our rock. We can just lighten that tone a little bit, mixing in here. Right, now we have to decide which way our river is going. So is the river coming towards us? I'm getting the feeling that it's actually moving away. And so what I'm going to do here quickly is just block in the river origins. Right, so there we have our river, winding its way down. It's not a perfect river. It does invade the grass on the side, so we don't want it to be between the lines all the way. So right, so we have a bit of that. Right, and because it's heading away from us, we also know that we're going to take a bit of white now, and you'll also see that we know that the river is going to be kind of running around these rocks and then making its way down. So you're only going to find the white water on this side, and then it's kind of peters out as it goes around. And if it's a good flowing river, then it just can make quite a splash, and then it moves around. So we're just going to create the illusion that the water is moving around, down, and then we've got this white water so some white water here, and then so yeah, so we just have this flow of water. It bunches up around the base, and then it swings around, and then it heads off, and then every now and then you'll see a little white water area wherever it kind of dams up around an obstacle. So nothing wrong with having the water moving around. Because it's fluid, you're going to have these fluid lines around the base of the rocks. So the water will come down and then move around, and so you'll have these areas of light, and then also you'll have areas of very dark water from the way that the water works, and then also because of what's underneath the surface. So we don't know if there's a rock there, but something is causing the water to maybe do whatever it's doing. So we want to create that illusion of the water coming around the rock and moving down as it moves away, and then we also want to create these streams of water as it moves along. So we don't want a smooth or flat. We're not looking for much of a reflection here, because it's a very busy waterway, this. So we're looking for lots of action and crisscrossing lines and little interesting areas in the water. So there you can see our water's grey as it runs down away from us. And now what we need to do also then is just create some overhanging foliage, if we can call it that. So for that I'm going to go with the ultramarine again, and we're just going to dab a little bit. You'll see I'm taking a much bigger brush, and I'm just using the corner and the side, and I'm just rotating, as we go. And what I'm going to do now is take some yellow ochre, and all I want to do is create the illusion that that there's something going on, and it's not about creating any particular thing. It's just about creating something going on along the side of the river. So you'll see I'm just dabbing, having a bit of fun, creating a bit of color, and we just have something happening here on the water's edge. If I try to draw or paint in every branch that was there, it would actually be quite a difficult exercise. And don't worry, we will be touching up. So we know the sun's coming from the right, so on the left hand side here you're going to have a bit more light, so we don't want to have that blending too much with the background. So there you can see we have this lighter patch, and of course it wouldn't be only on the water's edge. There would of course be something happening elsewhere, and right, so there we have some of that happening, and we're just going with dabs. So already now you can see that we have this interesting space along the riverbed, the river bank on the sides here, and because this is only getting the tops done, now we just do it slightly different, and you see we're just building on the color that was already there, and now we can go with a little bit of orange into that space as well. So we just dab, and then the orange and the yellow ochre get together and have a little bit of a party here, and it looks quite nice. And then we do the same thing here on the left hand side. So we're just creating this colorful thing, but we do know that it's alright. So, and then the human eye will also help to make some interesting spaces for us there. And then we're going to take some of this bright red, and we'll introduce very carefully, we'll introduce a bit of that as well, and that will also just add another dimension to the color. And we don't want a lot, but anyway, we've got quite a bit here. And right, so we have this interesting bit of color developing, and now what I'm going to do is add some just a little bit of lemon yellow, and it blends in very quickly with the colors around it. Right, so there we have, there's kind of interesting effect happening of the stuff growing here. We don't quite know what it is, but there's quite a bit of it, and it's all the way down the side of this river, and then we have quite a bit of it here hanging over into the water, and then also over here. So I don't have a very straight or structured side on the river side, so you'll see that it is kind of very unstructured, but you can see that it's there. Okay, so now we kind of have that going. Now we do need to work a bit on the the water around those rocks. So let's get some of the white going. Now that we're building it up, you can see that the painting's already starting to take a bit of shape. So we're building that up. It's quite a small, kind of hardish brush, and it's quite dry. And now we're building up these layers of texture. And this is where the water is sort of milling and streaming around and kind of moving. So we kind of create the movement with the brush, and then that gets translated into what we see, or what we don't see, but what we presume to be seeing. So we have this very turbulent water system here, and we have this fast flowing water. So here we have this, and then we have water kind of flowing around that rock and around here. Right, so you'll see so we have the water and it's coming down from somewhere, and that's right, and then it's moving around the rock, and then around that rock, and we can't always see what's in the way, but the water tells us that there's something there, and then it just keeps on going down, and there we have something happening, and further back there's a little bit, and so the river goes all the way down, and then here we don't have anywhere in this water where we have kind of like a non-busy space, because it's a turbulent rocking river. There's always something going on somewhere. So you can see that there. And then what I'm going to do is take some of this ultramarine, and then I'm just going to be blending that in places as well. That helps to break the white, and then it also helps to create the movement of the water. So there we have the water moving, it's coming down, it's going around, and there you can see it's right, so yeah, so there we have this movement of the water, and maybe and it's really just lots and lots of movement of water. So we want to create that flowing feeling, and so that's what I'm doing here. And you can see how as we build up those layers of ultramarine and water, how the movement in the water really starts to kind of build a personality, which it's not possible to put it down first time and have this kind of movement develop. So we do need to have these layers building up, and there we have them. Building up there, and there's something happening there. So you can, to a large degree here, determine, you know, what the water is going to be doing, how it's going to be flowing, but then you don't want to be using too much detail. You do want to kind of let it also use some happy accidents in your work to show how the water is moving. So you do want to do a couple of those areas. So there you'll see. Yeah, so we've got this water moving. It's a transparent surface. So once you've done a layer of a color, then it's good to just go in and break it up again with some more. And I'm just using the ultramarine here, and I'm not mixing that with anything else. And we just basically want to create the water kind of as it moves down. And water isn't only at one level, so although it's all pretty much the same level, it does have its troughs, its highs and its lows, and as it flows it develops these around rocks and stuff below the surface. So you want to create this kind of uneven surface, and also because it's so busy, because the eye can't go to a still point and focus, it then also helps to convey that that urgency in what's happening here. So there's definitely the feeling that there's something going on here and it's changing. So you want to create these areas where the shapes almost change when you move your eye from one focal point to another. Whatever's in your periphery vision then must change a little bit sometimes. And then also just create like little anomalies in the water as well, because you know we don't know what's happening in some of those places. So, and then also by using almost like a cross hatch technique here, then you're also creating movement. So it's not just about doing everything in the same direction to create the impression that the water is moving in the same direction. You'll see that I'm kind of going in all directions, yeah. And don't worry if you think you've messed up, because yeah, so you know, there we kind of go. And then just a bit more of the ultramarine, and you just want to use a few dabs here and there. Right, so there we're going down the hill. Right, and we know that there'll be less activity on the other side of the area. So right, now what we do need to do is to have some darker areas, because that's all very nice and blue, but we do know that there will be some darker areas as the water moves. And to do that, we're going to take that bright red and a bit of ultramarine. So I've put the ultramarine on my brush. Now I'm just going to dip into a bit of that red, and we know that that red's going to create there we go, this dark So there we are, just right, and then we just highlighting some areas, or low lighting or dark lighting some areas where we want the red to come through, because we don't know what colors, what's under this river, and we do know that there's stuff happening here. Right, so you'll see how that transparent or reddish color now is also adding another dimension to our water. So it's not just a two-color affair, and you can also see that it's using these darker pieces also helps to create the movement of the water as it disappears down the drag. Right, so there we have the water, the movement. Now I'm going to go back to my ultramarine. So just a little bit on the tip there, and you'll see now that we go back to where we applied the red, and we just layer the color, gets it nice and dark in places, and there we have yeah, so that's coming on nicely. And now I'm going to take some more white and add that. And any lines that you see that you feel are too obvious, then just break them up. There's no hard or fast rule here in the water. As long as the water is moving and it's heading downriver, then yeah, break it up, let it go. So there we have it splashing a bit, and here we'll have a bit of a splash as well. There's a bit of a splash. And it's not about seeing any particular detail, it's maybe about seeing less detail, but maybe just more of a feeling of water moving is what we're after here. So that's what we chasing. And then there's some, yeah, so I think there we've kind of captured some movement as the water rushes down away from us. And yeah, so we're gonna, I think we'll leave it at that. yeah, but really, and you can see how adding the colors does give the water a nice feel to it as it heads off down the stream. And if you feel like your water is looking too red and too blue, then what I'm going to do here is I'm just taking some yellow ochre, and just in a couple of spots I'm just adding a bit of that, because my water was very purple. And yeah, so we're just adding a bit of another color, and that just helps a bit with making what we're doing interesting. And you'll see there I'm just applying it, no particular and I'm just making that part of the river. So there we have our color, we have the water, and we just have that heading off away from where we are above the river here, watching it pass below us. And you'll see I'm just touching up a bit here and there. And you've really got to watch yourself and decide, when is enough. And it kind of builds itself as you go. So the color that you see might be very bright, maybe that will help to show. So yeah, we've I think we've developed that enough. It's quite a racy river, and it does have these undulations in it, and wherever you look it looks a little bit interesting. And then I think we're going to have a nice bright sky here. So we're going to take a slightly bigger brush, make sure it's dry, and then I'm going to add some of my sky, which is going to be the cerulean blue, and I'm going to take a bit of titanium white with that, titanium white, and the white side at the bottom. Now just going to apply it at the same time. So the brush is a little bit wet, and so it's just gliding on really smoothly. So we'll have this very smooth kind of sky. I prefer the tackier skies, but in this case maybe this very smooth blue sky is going to be okay. So right, it's drying up a bit here on the brush, so it's getting a bit more interesting. Right, so now the sky is coming along, and then a bit of titanium white again. And then we just blend that in here. Right, so there you can see the bit of the sky coming through, and going to make it slightly whiter here on the right, if that's where the light's coming from, and then just a little bit bluer, kind of darker on the left hand side. And get rid of that piece. Yeah, so there we have our sky coming in. And then we have the mountain. Right, so what we need to do is just lighten up a couple of things. So I think what we want to do is lighten up the hill over there. So I'm going to take some yellow ochre to the white and just give it a bit of a sunshine look there. So using the brick brush there, so that helps to create kind of those boldish strokes, and there's a bit of sun, so it's clearly not the best brush to use for this, but so we have this interesting hill space developing here, and then what we need to do is just add some sunshine over here to the trees and things. So let me get my brush, and then what I'm going to do is just adding, and because I'm working straight out of the paint tubes, it does make it a bit challenging to always mix the right color, because you can't always see what you're going to get until you apply. So, and then here you'll see, we're just adding a bit of the sunshine. Along the riverbank, so you'll see it developing there, and I'm just dabbing, you'll see with the brush like that, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So also just bit thick, but not to worry, we just dab, and you'll see that will then, as we dab with those colors, it'll just add a bit of sunshine to what we're busy with there. So we have a bit of that sunshine. We can bring it across to this side. Dab a bit there. So there we have a bit of that, and then a bit of, I'm going to do the same with the lemon yellow with a bit of white. And that just gives another color into the mix. So you'll see that that does do something interesting there. And we'll do some more on the other side. Right, so and I'm just dabbing as I go. Right, so there we have this kind of corridor of light on the riverbank as it heads back away from the river, and then the sides are a little bit darker. And then we just have these pockets of color, so we're kind of centralizing the color around the river that's heading off down the center. So that gives it that nice effect. Right, and a bit more here. And we just add a bit more over here. Yeah, so I think that kind of wraps up what we were trying to achieve here. We have our river turbulently moving away from us, and then we have this landscape fading off in the background. So a little bit abstract, but yeah, a good little exercise in a couple of things. So thank you for watching.